We're going to talk about the memoir, whatever did come of that. Progress on the Duke's memoirs had been slow. I've read chapters 19, 20, 21, and 22, which Miss Swan sent me yesterday, and I returned them, wrote George Allen to Walter Monckton in October 1949. I do not think that His Royal Highness himself can possibly be the author of these chapters. I feel that they are so bad that I am impelled to suggest to you that it may be our duty to advise him against publication, because if they appear in their present form, they will be condemned and must do him untold injury in every quarter. Would that somebody had told the same to Harry. Do you remember when that book came out? And do you remember how many foolish reviewers tried to say that book was good? And you just had to ask yourself, well, did you crack the cover? It was one of the worst books I have ever read. Its literary value was of no consequence whatsoever. And I don't know. But it seems that birds of a feather, because neither Harry can write, nor could his uncle. The press magnate, Lord Beaverbrook, who had been actively involved in the drama, was brought in to write the chapter about the abdication because they did not trust that the Duke could write the chapter on his own, that he was so confused and conflicted about the whole thing and had such a crooked narrative that they couldn't even expect that he could write it down. In correspondence regarding Lord Beaverbrook writing that chapter, the book says, I took the Murphy's chapters, and from his material I prepared the account marked Beaverbrook. If we decide on the Beaverbrook narrative, then we must all join together in pressing it upon the Duke. Your own authority will be required as well as my influence, and we must be tactful. Murphy, of course, could not have secured from the Duke the story I've told. The Duke did not know it. He never grasped the meaning of his own crisis. It is imperative that the Duke should not have knowledge of this letter to you. He must be persuaded to recognize that these writings represent his talks with Murphy and me. So they must think he's an idiot, because they've got Lord Beaverbrook to write an account, and they're like, if the Duke sees these, we need to explain to him that this is pretty much what he said to us. We don't even need to let him realize that we've gotten other people involved on this. We need to make him think that what he said is reflected in these pages. Do they think he's stupid? I mean, they must. Eventually, in January 1950, it was decided that the book was ready for submission and a contract was signed with Putnam. But it was to be another year before it was delivered. In many ways, I am disappointed with the state of the work, wrote Charles Murphy to George Allen in January 1950. He goes on to say, certain chapters, notably 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, have never been gone over by me. They consist primarily of the original life material of the first series, partly finished notes and experimental undertakings which the Duke himself grouped together, adding various bits and pieces of his own. But stylistically, they are certainly not up to the standard of the rest. It has been like trying to make a rope of sand. Whoa, that is a fantastic mental image of what this was like. Making a rope out of sand? Excellent. I'll have to find out when I can use that. The reasons were clear. The Duke had lost interest in the book because he was focused on trying to save his marriage. In April of 1951, A King's Story, which recounts his life up to the abdication, was published. The Windsors launched it from the Waldorf Towers and then traveled around the States promoting it. I had editorial advice and assistance in compiling the book, of course, but I read every word of it myself, the Duke told Nancy Spain for Good Housekeeping, adding, I worked an average of 8 hours a day, 9 until 1 o'clock, and then 4 hours more between lunch and dinner. Oh, you worked on it hard, did you? Is that why the people working with you said they couldn't get anything out of you and that you'd show up drunk as a skunk every time it was time to start working? Reviews were mixed. The New York Times described the book as a character study of a well-meaning, undistinguished individual destined from birth to life of monumental artificiality. Burn. Noel Annan, reviewing the British edition in The New Statesman, thought, reflections of inconceivable banality succeed descriptions of court life so bizarre that the characters seem permanently to be playing charades. Now, there were some good reviews. The Scotsman thought that it was, quote, well written and lively, and The Economist said that it was, quote, a most dignified, objective, and historically valuable work whose readers will, it is safe to say, look on the throne with an enhanced and deepened respect. And The Observer found that it was frank and absorbing. But they also said the wisdom of publication is arguable. The hero emerges as rather a pathetic figure. Pathetic! It's the only word to use. Tommy Lascelles had no illusions about the book. I dare say the Duke of Windsor has written a good book, but it is wrong and disloyal for a former King of England to write such a book for profit and to sell things that are not his to sell. Now, the reviews did not prevent A King's Story from sitting on the bestsellers list for 7 months, being translated into over 20 languages and earning the Duke more than £300,000. And as a word to all of you, I will not be reviewing that book. I know. Everyone's going to be like, well, we should do that one next. No, we shouldn't. Because it's not real. It's not really what he thought. It's a bunch of collaboration of people trying to come up with the story and putting his name on it to give him something to do. So, no.